The following marketing information and discussion is provided for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as professional guidance or consultancy. You should find an agency for that. Comexis is a digital marketing agency, so feel free to hire us. But otherwise, just enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Buyer's Journey by Comexis, a discussion-based podcast on the ever-changing marketing landscape. I'm Matthew McGroarty, the social media content producer here at Comexis.
I'm Len Ward, the managing partner at Comexis.
And I'm Josh Lyons, the digital marketing coordinator here at Comexis.
So today we're continuing our series on talking about the Quarter 2 2019 earnings calls of a lot of platforms and tools that we use here as an advertising agency. And today we are talking about Twitter's Quarter 2 earnings call. So here are a couple key numbers for Q2. Earnings per share was 20 cents adjusted versus the 19 cents per share expected per Refinitiv. Revenue was $841 million versus $829.1 million expected. And average monetizable daily active users, which is MDAUs, was 139 million. And a lot of this info is coming from Laura Feiner on CNBC. Her piece will be linked in the blog description. So revenue was up 18% year over year, the company said, due to domestic growth. Twitter said it reached an average of 139 million monetizable daily active users in the second quarter, a 14% increase year over year. And average domestic MDAUs came to 29 million in the quarter, a 10% increase compared with a year earlier. And internationally, average MDAUs were 110 million in the quarter, up 15% from the previous year. On a call with analyst CFO Ned Siegel said Twitter had been remarkably consistent with bringing in users at the top of the funnel who visited the site for a specific purpose. It focused on converting those people into MDAUs by helping them find what they're looking for faster, he said. Twitter provided guidance for the third quarter, saying it expects revenue to range from 815 million to 875 million. I'm not going to get too much into those numbers, but needless to say, they're expecting more money. So previous quarter was the last where Twitter said it would report monthly active users as it shifts to the new metric, which was monthly MDAUs, which is the monthly daily... I'm forgetting the thing I literally read 4 seconds ago. Monetizable daily active users. And basically the difference there is that they are seeing people who are logging in on Twitter, access Twitter throughout their applications, and that are actually able to be shown ads rather than just the active users who go on and either can't be shown ads for whatever reason it is. And Twitter specifically has said that MDAUs are not comparable to disclosures from other social media companies because, quote, it is a more expansive metric that includes people who are not seeing ads. So Twitter reported 134 million daily MDUs for the first quarter. Snap reported 203 million DAUs in the earnings call that we talked about yesterday, and Facebook reported 1.59 billion DAUs. For reference. Twitter also said its total advertising revenue reached $727 million in the quarter, which is up 21% or 23% on a constant currency basis. Its ad revenue growth in the U.S. grew 29% compared with 26% the previous quarter. Quote, "We feel like our messages of launching new products and services and connecting what's happening continues to really resonate with advertisers," Siegel told analysts on the earnings call. And in its letter to shareholders, Twitter said it's made policies easier to read and implemented new features, and it's designed to make it a better experience. What do we think about that, guys?
I'm kind of looking here. It also said the company saw a drop, 18% drop in reports of spammy or suspicious content.
Which is good.
Yeah,
it keeps people on the platform.
They made a major push. You know, I'll say up front, I am, like Snapchat, I'm a very big fan of Twitter. I think Twitter, you should absolutely have some of your ad dollars in there. I don't think there's any question that based upon what you're trying to go for, Twitter is a really good place to put your advertising. But here's the number you really have to think about. The 134 monetizable daily average users.
It's 139. 134, I believe, was Q1.
I mean, that's like... I would have to really dig into that a little bit. Really, I need to know exactly what they mean by that. I know what they're trying to say, but so
here's the direct quote from them. Twitter users who this is what an MDAU is. Twitter users who log in and access Twitter on any given day through twitter.com or Twitter applications that are able to show ads.
Okay.
So I can't imagine.
Who are the people who can't show ads? Are you
can't
able to shut off ads? I didn't know that's an option.
I don't know if that includes people with ad blockers or what, but that's their metric. I believe it was created at a time when daily active users, there was some issue or discrepancy with the daily active users not looking good, but the MDAUs looking way better. So that's why they shifted over to it. So it's an interesting statistic, to say the least.
Well, we're going to do a little math here.
Here we go.
I'm doing this. Okay. Current population of the United States of America is 327 million people, is what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you're looking from a domestic standpoint, like a domestic advertising standpoint, I find that a little low. We're only 300 million. So if you're an advertiser
and average domestic MDAUs were 29 million in the quarter. So it's even lower in America.
So the max you can target in our country is about 8% of our absolute, people that make up America. So just basically apply that directly to your advertising. You should not have any more than maybe 10% of your ad budget going into Twitter. I know I'm kind of really stretching with those numbers. Mm-hmm. I like Twitter,
but it's estimates.
It's estimates. Yeah, it's just guessing. It
depends on your brand, what your industry is.
Exactly. Twitter. The one thing I'll say to Twitter, I know Josh and I talked about this. The traffic Twitter sends to your website is about the best traffic you're ever going to see. It's tremendous. It comes in, they stay there, they're engaged. It's funny because when we're active on Twitter, and we did a little bit of advertising on Twitter, we actually generated leads on Twitter. And if we didn't generate the lead, the individuals that were coming on the site might have been competitors, which, however, they were really engaged in the site. They were 5-6 pages deep. They were really looking at the stuff we were doing. So I think there's two trains of thought. Well, they don't have a lot of users, and there's only 29 million people that we can actually monetize and go after. That's true. But you have to try to identify, I'd try to identify the marketplace that you're going after, and does that individual, are they on Twitter? If you're selling, I think, sports products or something with the NFL, NBA, they're on Twitter.
So we're all over the place.
So you want to go in there and market. So I think this is a really good vehicle. Their numbers are obviously showing that things are going in the right way. Their stock, I think, is at about $41. It's reflective of what's going on here. And that stock at one point, I think this year was maybe in the 20s. A lot of this is fueled. So again, you're digging a little deeper to say, okay, well, Len, on the last podcast, you said the numbers are showing good, and if people are investing in the stock, should we be, maybe putting some of our ad dollars in there? Well, there's two ways to look at it. One, yeah. Two, Twitter has long been a takeover candidate, and they sometimes have not been afraid to let you know that they're a takeover candidate. I do think at some point, somewhere, somebody's going to come in and acquire Twitter, unless Twitter decides to flip the switch with their money and go acquire somebody. So I think some of that is baked into the stock price here, opposed to just sheer, okay, look, let's take a look at the revenue. But for me, which is the opposite of what I say on things like Facebook, they have to grow their user base. 29 million is just not enough. So Twitter themselves need to do their own marketing campaign, which we've said repeatedly. It's probably the best pure social media platform out there. But when you give it to the average person, they're like, there's a bunch of spammy people out there. I'm going to get trolled, and it's complicated to even look at. When the reality of it, if you actually go to Twitter and use their search bar, it's one of the best search bars out there. It's tremendous. We actually mine data here on campaigns from the Twitter and what's trending and what's going on. So searching via their hashtags is phenomenal. It's really, really good. So I guess all in all, Twitter's still doing well. Personally own the stock. I like the company. And I do think you should have some ad dollars in there. And this is the one where I was mentioning in a couple podcasts ago. I do recommend, based upon the products or the services that we're offering, that you should have at least 5% of your ad budget in Twitter right now. I think you should be there because of the quality of the traffic that it's bringing. If you're beginning to see them go on a massive push to try to acquire more users in which they can monetize, at that point you want to start moving more ad dollars. But let's call it the way. Get your ad dollars in there. I wouldn't do any more than 5%. And secondly, they have got to grow their user base. It's just not enough, and they're just not doing anything to grow, which Jack Dorsey, right? Is that the CEO? Yeah. Concerning why he's not legitimately putting a massive push behind a marketing campaign to do that. And I'm surprised that the investors aren't asking, Jack, what are you doing to try to get more people? I know you're reducing the spammy, that's great, but we got to grow people we can, there's an audience that we have to put ads in front of, grow it.
Jack Dorsey's a weird dude.
I don't get him.
He wanted like
he left, he came back, now he's running is he running two companies right now?
I have no idea. Every time I read a story about him, I'm like,
I think I actually read something the other day that he does like intermediate fasting, but he does intermediate fasting, where he intermediate fasts already within the small amount of food and time he already eats. It's like really weird.
It's funny because we're gonna go on a big side tangent, but don't worry, I'm gonna pull it back in. I promise. He's talked about how like doing that fasting makes him feel really good and stuff, and it's so funny because like. He talks about like feeling enlightened. It's like that's the feeling your body gives when it thinks it's starving to death.
like when you're close to seeing God because you're dying.
I mean, you know what? Listen, he's got all the money he would ever need in the world, so he can do whatever he wants.
Hey Jack, during your intermittent fasting, can you grow your user base? That would be great.
I would love to give money to your company. So I just decided to do total advertising revenue divided by MDAUs. So it's about $5.23 per person in terms of revenue per MDAU user. So not all that bad. I mean, I forget which platform we were talking about where it was average. I think it was Facebook. It was like average revenue was like $7 or $8 or something per user. Obviously, for Facebook, that means a crap ton of money.
What was that? That was $7. Yeah, was it Facebook?
I would have to find my paper. I'll reference it in the blog post, hopefully, if I remember. But it was something. It was like $7 or $8 or $9 or something like that. So Twitter's at about 5 if we're going straight from the MDAU thing. So I don't think that's particularly bad.
No, you're getting quality traffic coming in from your ads. No question. It's absolutely a place you need to be. And it definitely, I think it's now wedged and shoehorned its way in where, again, you do Facebook, you do Instagram, you do Google and properties and YouTube. I think Twitter has now firmly supplanted itself directly on there saying, hey, I know we're only 5% of the pie, but we're here to stay. So if you're not, advertising on Twitter based upon what product you're selling, your campaigns, you're not advertising properly. You have to have the right mix, much like a mutual fund, and Twitter has to be a part of it right now. I just wish they would grow this user base. So. Yeah,
and there's something I want to talk about that I think Josh can speak of specifically because he loves Twitter, which is when we talk about bringing in new users, trying not to complicate things as much. Twitter came out with its new UI officially for all users, at least on desktop. The mobile app has not changed particularly much. Yeah,
I think some have.
Yeah, but the desktop app is like the biggest change.
Yeah.
And people like me did not like it, and now that I'm using it more, I still don't really like it, but at least I'm used to it. So Josh, can you tell me your thoughts on that and how you think it might help the user base grow?
I mean, I personally liked it right off the bat, but that was because the old user experience wasn't real time. So if you wanted to see interaction on something or you wanted to get additional comments or what people are talking about, you had to click up at the top and refresh the news feed, refresh. With the new user experience, everything's real. So you could be scrolling on your feed and you could see some big news pop up and you'll see that number, the comments, the likes, the retweets, they're constantly going. So it's real time in your face. This is how people are reacting, which I think is great because Twitter is so just like any social network, it's very fast. You're scrolling, you're either going to notice it or you're not. You're going to keep going. But since Twitter's very real-time information, it's hard for someone, when it's happening organically, it's hard for someone to see what you were talking about 6 hours ago because people are tweeting nonstop. It's very organic heavy in terms of when people are talking. Yeah. So the new user experience helps people it helps both you as the user, but also you as the brand that's trying to advertise or talk about your products. It helps it pop because if you see the image that you like and you see that people are talking about it, whether you're using the search bar for hashtags or you're just seeing it organically on your feed, it gives that sort of element where it stands out. It allows you to, realize that people like it, people are talking about it. Like we talked about on other shows, like the aspect of the retweets versus the likes. if people are retweeting it, they really want other people to see it on their feed. And the reach on Twitter is the highest of any platform when used correctly in the right industry because of that retweet aspect. So it's great. I mean, I've always talked about it within the sports industry because I'm a sports nerd, and I do a lot of sports things on Twitter. So for us specifically, it's like Len said, the quantity of users aren't there, but the quality of users are, especially in the sports industry. So when
it's very heavy sports, politics,
yeah,
law.
Well,
those are
we
the
talked
three.
about this. We talked about this at the end of last podcast when we were done wrapping up, where the audience it's very interactive based. So you're now seeing players of teams, sports teams in itself, politicians, news anchors. They're interacting with you instead of just posting to the world, this is what we're talking about, we want your opinion. They will quote tweet you, they will respond to you, they will do anything to interact. And that's what gets these users to look at you and be like, oh wow, now I'm standing out. They're seeing what I'm doing, what I'm saying. Twitter is very humor based, so it's very meme culture. So now you're seeing brands, you've seen Wendy's do it all the time. You're now seeing Kool-Aid and Steakums and Burger King and all that stuff. They're adding this element of comedy, but they're also using the ad feature where you're scrolling on your ads, you're seeing weird pictures, weird videos, and then all of a sudden
you're seeing that spicy nuggets are coming back from
exactly.
Wendy's, folks.
And something that just happened, this is one thing that I really love, is we talked about this yesterday, Matt, about the whole PEMDAS thing, because PEMDAS was trending because someone put out a picture like solve this problem, and it was very contentious because some people thought the answer was 16, some people thought the answer was 1.
The classic stump people who forgot 6th grade math,
right.
Basically.
But then...
Oh, is this the 8 divided by 8 thing?
Yeah, 8 divided by 2, parentheses 2 plus 2. And it was so contentious. But then all of a sudden, the day of, maybe a couple hours later, you're seeing Kool-Aid put out an ad that's spelling Kool-Aid, but in like a PEMDAS, like in like a math equation. Yeah. And they were hashtagging PEMDAS. They were doing the same, like, oh yeah. They basically said, oh yeah, but in an equation. And they literally took a crazy, ridiculous concept that it just started out of nowhere, and within hours they threw an ad up, and then it got tons of traffic because it's very right now. So on Facebook and on Snapchat and on Instagram, all that stuff, the
trends are slower.
It is slow. But on Twitter, it happens so quick and in your face that if you utilize it right and you're in the correct industry, you can get leads actually to convert faster than other platforms. At least that's what I've noticed personally.
Yeah, and I know Twitter indexes pretty well on Facebook too when you're looking, or not Facebook, on Google when you're looking for certain types of news. So if you're doing like fantasy football and you type in, tight end depth in the 7th and 8th round, and if you go hit that on Google, you'll see the blocks that Google's showing you, and then they'll have Twitter will be on there. I'd be interested to see, is that some of what they're talking about? Who's not seeing the ads? Are you not seeing the ads if you go search it that way and you're not? Do you have to be logged in and be an account user to see the ads?
You do. I know if you do use the search bar and you scroll throughout, you can see ads.
Okay.
So does what? Twitter?
TweetDeck?
I don't think so.
Maybe
And that would make sense because a lot of people use TweetDeck when they're managing multiple accounts.
And I'm sure if you're using like Hootsuite or something like that, you're probably not seeing ads either. But
that could work for other platforms too.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where I don't think that's a good example actually.
We have to just find out because just a small tweak like that, your audience just exploded.
Right.
Just because it's not a user. Google, when they go in and they're talking about stuff, they don't necessarily talk about users per se, because a lot of people have not signed up for a Google account, but they know how many people search and so forth. Twitter should maybe start, because people do use the Twitter search feature, more so than I think a lot of people think. Twitter should probably start factoring in those metrics. Well, here's how many people came who were maybe non-users who started searching via our bar. Here's how many people arrived at Twitter. Dig down in those numbers and say, here's the impressions we had from our stuff showing. Here's the reach, and start tracking that, because that would mean a lot to advertisers, especially if we know that they're not signed up to Twitter but using it, but our ads are showing to individuals. Although trying to figure out the audience, you could figure it out based upon what they're searching for. But
I wonder if they'll ever show us a timeline of didn't use Twitter, did searches, signed up, became an MDAU? Like how many individual people per, let's just say year, because there's no point in doing it per quarter, because it's probably smaller per quarter than it would be in the total year, right? But I think that would be a good, showing that pipeline might actually help say like, here's how many people are actually, like, because they don't talk about new users here. I mean, I think they mention MDAU growth, but who's to say that that's growth from a new user compared to somebody who's been on Twitter who for some reason wasn't able to be shown ads. But I digress. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of The Buyer's Journey. Check us out on Comexis.com, YouTube, and anywhere you can get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter at @buyers_journey. Thanks for listening.